Welcome to the latest Seahawks Draft Blog live stream. Rob and Robbie only here today. No Adam, but the two of us are going to get into this game. The Seahawks winning 20 points to 10. Okay, I mean, look, the Seahawks have won the game, Robbie, and for that, we can be grateful. And there are definitely positives. You know, the positives for me, Devon Witherspoon looks great. My favourite bit of the game was Devon Witherspoon's hit late in the third quarter. That's why I watch football. And he was really unfortunate that he had an interception and a sack called back because of penalties involving other people. In particular, the sack looked a bit ticky-tacky in terms of the penalty flag as well, I thought. So, you know, when there's something like that, it didn't look an egregious foul. So I don't know why that was called back personally. So I thought Devon Witherspoon was great. Jake Bobo, fantastic. You know, blog favourite. We spoke about him many times during the last college football season when he was at UCLA. So great to see him in Seattle and great to see him performing so well. You know, such a really easy guy to root for. It dawned on me today that he looks exactly like Justin Herbert. And I have to admit, Robbie, there were a few times during that game where I wondered whether he could take a few snaps under center because, yeah, we'll get on to that. But, you know, and there are other positives. Jordan Brooks seemed to play well. The pass rush at the end came to life. And there was some good moments. Jackson Smith and Jibber got his first touchdown. But overall, Robbie, I thought that was a dog's dinner of a game. I thought both teams were sloppy. The Arizona Cardinals are a terrible football team, and the Seahawks made it a close game. And I'm not willing to sit here and go, that's just what they do. You should be pummeling a team like that, quite frankly. And especially when their left tackle gets kicked out of the game in the first half. And we didn't. I think on another day, we could have lost that game. They scored 3 points off 3 turnovers. So I come away from that game not really that enthused. Glad we won, but totally unenthused. What is your view on the game?
Yeah, I think, I'm in the same boat. I would a pretty unenthusiastic game. I think, like you said, both teams played like crap, and it wasn't really all that exciting. But I'll be honest, if we would have lost that game, I would have lost my shit. I would have lost my stuff on that one. Sorry. That would have been pretty frustrating. So those are the kind of games you're supposed to win, even when you're playing bad. So I'll take that. I think the defense, they did their job today for sure. I think I'm a little surprised by how inept the offense seems sometimes, and it seems like some things are really forced, and I don't really get it. I like the way Walker ran today. I just feel like there's, I was expecting this to be much bigger, high performance, offensive performance teaming, and it just hasn't felt that way yet to me. And there's a lot of positives to take away. Bobo's obviously one, Witherspoon, again, Walker, I think, the defense come into play. There's a lot of things that I really liked. And, there's some things that were just kind of boring. It's just kind of a boring football game. But again, I will say coming away with a win is much better than if we would have lost that one. So I'm happy to get away with a win and on to the next one. And I will actually be at the next game. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Oh, awesome. That's great. So the next game's Cleveland, right? Is that correct?
Next one's Cleveland. That's why I'm wearing all my throwback gear, because that's the throwback game. So,
of course.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you saw any of the Cleveland game today, but that was an adventure. You would have seen it because you're in Indianapolis, Robbie. You've got to have seen a bit of that.
I actually didn't.
Oh, wow.
Okay. I watched only one game today. It was the Seahawks. That was it. So.
Yeah. Well, you missed a cracker. I mean, it was fun. I only saw it on Red Zone, and I think it finished 39-38 or 38-37 or something like that. Absolute cracker of a game. And, the people may think, oh, well, Deshaun Watson got injured again. That's good news. The Browns were so much better without Deshaun Watson. So, well, look, we may well touch on that briefly. And that great to see all of the throw. I love the Seattle Seahawks hat, by the way. That is a great hat.
Thank you.
I wish they did a hat with. I can't do a flat peak. My head shape just it just does not look right. So I have to have the curve. I wish they would do a hat like that with a curve. If somebody's listening, they're not going to be listening. But if somebody is listening to this who makes hats, if you could do that, but with that, then great. Anyway, back to the game. Someone has mentioned super chat away. By the way, if you have a question or comment you want to make, then get your super chats in. We will go to that. Make sure you like the video as well if you're watching on YouTube. We will talk about Geno Smith. we're going to have to talk about Geno Smith at some point, because I think this is a big talking. It's going to be a big talking point. It's going to be a big talking point, whatever happened. And we're going to get on to Geno Smith. But just for the, to humor the people who will be on here just dying to get into the live chat and have a whinge at the fact that we're talking about negative things. Let's continue to talk about the positive things, Robbie. Somebody has mentioned in the comment section that Boya Mafe is really coming into his own. I think I'm right. Oh, what was the stat from? He has got. Hang on, the music's playing on this. I was trying to get it on ESPN and it's playing music at me. Okay, so he has got a number of stats in so many games. I was going to try and dig it out on the ESPN website here because I had the box score open, but it's like I say, it just started chucking music my way and it was distracting me. Is it something like 5 sacks in 5 games? Is it as good as that? It's something. Is it 3 sacks in 3 games? I'm trying to work it out. Boya Mafe.
I'm not sure, but he is playing really, really well.
Right,
I like the way he's playing, yeah.
So he has got, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. He's got 4 sacks in 4 games. So that's really encouraging that he's got 4 sacks in 4 games. And the thing about Boya Mafe, Robbie, is I don't ever get the sense that he's going to be I don't think he's ever going to be a Max Crosby or anybody like that. But I don't think the Seahawks have a player like that. I think they're going to have to be a team that find contributions from many different people in terms of pressure and sacks. It's going to have to be a team effort rather than having one dominant edge rusher or interior rusher. And with Mafe and Jaron Reed, it's very concerning that Uchenna and Wosu left the game with a pec injury, because they're the kind of things that can be, he's out for a season easily. Doesn't sound much, does it? But a torn pec or something, Robbie, and that can be season over. And he's a very important player for Seattle, but we'll include him in this list. Darrell Taylor's been awful all season, but at the end of that game had an impact for the first time in probably this season. And you've got Derek Hall in there as well. So Robbie, a thought on Boya Mafe and generally that thought that maybe they're all going to have to sort of combine to contribute.
Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of said it last year a little bit too, that we would have liked to see him play a little more, over Bruce Irvin. So the fact that he's getting a chance to get onto the field and prove his worth is great. And there was a lot of talk about him coming out of training camp that he's really took a step forward. And yeah, I'm really excited about him. He seems to be playing well, and 4 sacks in 4 games. I mean, he just continues to improve, and I'm really excited about him. You're right about Darrell Taylor, man. Today, there was a couple times he frustrated me, but man, Maffei's got it, man. He's one of those players that you can really, put in that rotation of DNs and just help get after it. So I really like him. I'm pretty excited about what he can continue to bring to the table.
Yeah, I think it's really good. And if he ends up, what you really need from him, because look, maybe he will end up being a dominating edge rusher. I just don't, I've never really got that sense from him. I didn't get that sense from him, and I really liked him, after the Senior Bowl, and sort of studying him and speaking to people about him and interviewing Jim Nagy and him talking about him really sort of whet the appetite for Boya Mafe as a pro prospect. But at no point did you sort of think, well, this guy's destined to be the next Khalil Mack or anything like that. You always thought he was going to be a contributor rather than somebody who would, win a game like Myles Garrett did today. Those players are few and far between. But he is, if he can be 8, 9, 10 sack a season player for a second round pick, that's great. And that's kind of what you're hoping for. And then if there's a couple of seasons when he can get nearer 12, 13, like Frank Clark, then great. And that's what you hope for. The fact he's got 4 sacks already is he's well on the way to get those sort of 8 to 10 sacks. And look, he's not even like Frank Clark. When Frank Clark had his great final season in Seattle, he was, pretty formidable, very difficult to stop. I don't think Boya Mafe is ever going to be that kind of player, but still great to see him contributing. And I thought Jordan Brooks had a good game today. I thought he seemed to play pretty well. I didn't really have that many complaints about the defense, Robbie. I mean, look, Arizona was so bad. How bad were Arizona today? The fake punt,
So,
Robin.
so that was the worst play I've ever seen. That was terrible.
That's not the worst because there was what there was. Can you remember the Colts fake punt against? Was it the Patriots when they kind of lined up with the guy and the one lineman
Oh
in front,
yeah,
and
the
they
track, and
snapped
they're
it
like,
and they
like,
sacked
what?
him,
They
and it
had
was
like
a
no idea.
turnover on downs.
Yeah, like what
Like
did
that
you
was
even
the
do?
worst. That is never going to be topped. That is the worst play ever, and will never be beaten for the
Yeah,
worst. And you know,
yeah, that's true.
but that was
It
a
was
pretty
still
crap
bad.
play.
It was still bad.
That was a shit. I mean, what was the plan? It was like, oh, we're going to trick him. We're going to line up, and then once they'd line up and everyone was just covered, what you're basically just in that situation. Then had your backup quarterback throwing the
Yeah,
ball, or your third string quarterback because Kyler Murray's obviously the starter, you would imagine. So, I mean that to me was young coach in his rookie head coaching year learning a lesson there.
yeah. I think my only complaints on the defense is again, there's sometimes where the tackling is just a major issue. And again, you saw it on the Josh Dobbs run where he scored a touchdown 25 yards out, and you're just like, what is happening? Like, why can't you wrap up? I feel like those some things just kind of drive me nuts. And then there were some ticky tacky fouls that I could have done away with, but that I mean, I think those are kind of my biggest complaints really about the defense. But honestly, for the most part, pretty happy with the way they played.
Yeah, I mean the touchdown was pretty awful, wasn't it?
Oh, and there's a 3rd and 9 too, where they ran the ball and they got a first
yeah.
down. They ended up picking like 17 yards or something. I was like, what the hell? Like,
I think what it kind of showed to me, Robbie, is that the defense. I think a lot of people were sort of ready to crown the defense a little bit. I'm not there yet, but what we have sort of seen in the last few weeks is there's a great amount of talent on the defense. There are good players on the defense. Devin Witherspoon is everything we could have hoped for so far this early in his career, and I just hope that he can keep going. And I feel really frustrated for him that at least the sack, for example, didn't count because it felt like the hit alone is an amazing play, but it doesn't show up in a stat column, does it? And you almost kind of wish it could because it was such a great hit. It's the hit of the year. So he's obviously very, very talented. I think it's fair to say, look, as someone who has criticized Quandre Diggs, I don't know. I want to see the touchdown again. I don't know whether somebody said that Tariq Woolen pushed the quarterback away from Diggs, but to me, it looked a little bit like he could have got across there. But either way, I think Diggs has played a lot better the last few weeks. Jamal Adams is not playing like a 2 first-round pick and bajillion dollars a year player, but he's solid. He's playing a solid.
He's not a liability, which is the most you can say. Because I think at this point, him actually playing and not being a liability is huge. And I think when he first came on, and you looked at the 2 first rounds, you just expected absolute dominance, right? And the fact that he just wasn't that, he was dropping interceptions that hit him in the face, missing tackles, or just not even trying on, goal line tackles because they want to get hurt. Like seeing those things got really frustrating. So to see him out there and actually playing, yes, and then not like being a complete, waste of space and like, being a hindrance to the defense. I feel like that's a really good win for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a win. I also would sort of caution against people overreacting to the fact that he's simply on the field. Like he is still a hugely expensive player who, forget the first round picks, the cap hits are enormous. So he needs to be, eventually he needs to be better than just out there. He needs to be a difference maker. But, fair play in the, is it 2 games that he's been back? Yes, the Bengals game was this first proper game back because he lasted nine snaps against the Giants. And in this game, he's been perfectly acceptably decent. So there's that. And look, there's the front 7. I like the way they are aggressive, Robbie. So I think fair enough. There were some bad plays, some bad moments today, but nothing too shambolic or anything. It was a fine performance from the defense. The offense, I don't just want to pin it on sort of 1 or 2 things, Robbie, but they've got too many good players to be playing this poorly on offense. We're 6 games in now. They've had a bye week, so they've had an extra week to reflect. the offense needs to play better than this. And I know DK Metcalf wasn't playing today. I know that they're on is it something like their 5th offensive line group in 6 games or 4th in 5 games or something like that. You know, they've mixed the O-line up a lot. That's what it is. But then the O-line today, there was a stat that showed up just after halftime, Robbie, where like Geno was like 11 of 13 for 2 touchdowns in the first half when under no pressure, and that according to Fox, he'd only been pressured on 2 snaps in the entire half. So you can't really say the offensive line was anything to blame today. They've got a whole bunch of weapons. I just want to sort of reiterate what I kind of said last week. Geno Smith is not a terrible player. I've just seen a bit of Green Bay against Denver, and Jordan Love is a terrible quarterback, in my opinion. He is not the answer for Green Bay. It's pretty obvious. They're going to have to do something because, they're just about to lose to the Broncos. So Russ is just going to, so they've lost. So the Packers have lost to the Broncos. They're 2-4. They're awful. Jordan Love's awful. They're going to have to definitely move on. Geno Smith's nowhere near as bad as Jordan Love, but he's not the answer, Robbie. He's not the future of this team. He is not the guy who's going to lead this team to the promised land. You have to be planning to have somebody who can do that. I'm sorry. I know what Adam said last week, that maybe the team overall will be good enough to get through it. I'm not there. I think that the red zone, Waldron deserves a lot of blame as well. They're crap in the red zone, Robbie. They're abysmal in the red zone. Horrendous. You can't be this bad in the red zone and be a good football team. Geno Smith had the near pick 6 in the first half, where he threw it straight to Kazir White, who dropped it. He had the terrible interception in the second half. I have no idea what he's doing there. What was he thinking, Robbie, throwing that pass for the interception?
No idea.
And then he comes back on the next one, and he just gets the snap and drops it on the floor.
Yeah.
And then
I don't like the way he responded to that either. Did you see him? Like he was like he was yelling at the center about it. Now I looked like a good snap, so I was.
He's such a good leader, though, Robbie. Such a good leader, because the Twitter keeps telling us, the Seahawks Twitter account. And then he just fell apart after that, Robbie. Like, he couldn't convert a third down. And look, there's the customary plays from Geno that you expect. He's got a good arm. He's a physical specimen, Robbie. You know, he was a second-round pick for a reason. He's got a strong arm. He can make some good plays, and he can score touchdowns. Like, he's not a terrible player. But I'll go back to what I said at the start. He's not the answer, Robbie. He's not.
Yeah, he's a middle-tier quarterback that's just probably not going to lead us to the promised land. I think we kind of talked about that already. I think I'm really concerned about our red zone offense right now. The fact that it just feels like we can't punch it in the red zone is really starting to be concerning. And I'm actually fairly worried about this Browns team coming up next week. I mean, the offensive line was not an issue today, but it could certainly be an issue next week. And Geno's going to have to play.
I don't think there's an O-line that can stop Myles Garrett.
No, he's on a different planet right now. So this is one of those things that I'm really worried about next week. But I'm back to the Geno Smith thing. He's got to be the luckiest quarterback in the history of quarterbacks to not get picked off. So many dropped interceptions. I don't get it. So, because he can certainly have a lot more, and there was one today. So,
the amazing thing is his quarterback rating. I don't understand these things. Was 113 today. I don't. I guess that doesn't take into account the fumble, and I don't know that, because that's always like wow, what a performance. And I'm sure these are the things, Robbie, is I noticed this after last week. You know, people, it seems strange to me. I don't want to, when you say there's almost like a cult-like, so it's too much. There isn't that. But there's certainly people who, it feels like this is like developing, maybe, it's not there yet, but it could easily develop into the next thing where Seahawks fans split themselves into teams, and go and have a war online about is, how good is Geno Smith? You have people, like I tweeted out, because as you do sometimes in frustration after the interception, bridge quarterback, #Seahawks. And people were arguing with me, Robbie, like going, nah, you don't know what you're talking about and stuff like this. And Are we? Is it really that offensive to say that what we're seeing from Geno Smith, or what we have seen from Geno Smith, Robbie, since the Germany game last year? He had a fantastic start to last season. Nobody can deny that. He was being touted as an MVP. Me and you got carried away before the Germany game, and we're talking about what what could the record be and all of this, and then they went on to lose like 5 of the next 7 or something. So he was fantastic, but then he turned back into Geno Smith, and he's Geno Smith still. Geno Smith, believe it or not, is Geno Smith. Like, this is who he is. And it's perfectly fine, Robbie. He can be our Alex Smith, but he has to be viewed as such. We can't pretend, the franchise can't pretend that this is the guy. The franchise has to be honest with itself. We need to find the guy. And while we're looking for the guy, he can be the starter. But we need to find the guy. When I'm watching these quarterbacks, and look, we can talk about this as well, Robbie. What a crap weekend for college quarterbacks, by the way. Crap. Like, it's not good at all. It's hard to find the guy. It's really hard. And I get the sense that John Schneider is being especially patient as he tries to find the next guy. But sooner or later, we're going to have to find him, because you mentioned the Browns. This is the games coming up. So the Seahawks are 4-2, and we can feel pretty good about that today. If they did lose to the Browns next week, and that it could go either way because they've got their own issues, but they're a good football team. They've got a great defense. The Browns at home and then the Ravens away. You could easily find yourself at 500 in 2 games' time, and then you've got to go. You play Washington, who look pretty awful, but then you go to the Rams, who look surprisingly competitive and always play the Seahawks hard. Then it's the Niners.
And they handed us.
Yes, an embarrassing loss.
Lost the first week, so.
Then it's the Niners, then it's Dallas, then it's the Niners, then it's the Eagles, and then it's at Tennessee, and then it's Steelers, who are a spunky little competitive team. We are getting to where this is it now, Robbie.
This is where it's happening. Yeah. I mean, this is where, like, I'd just be grateful we're 4-2 at this point. I mean, I'd love to be 5-1 if we would have just not dropped that flipping Bengals game. I mean, that's the thing. Like, those are the ones we need to win, because you're going to go into this tough schedule going up, and you got to make sure these are going to be some win. These are the tough ones to win for sure.
Well, let me ask you this then, because I want to get to the super chats. I'm getting behind on them, but how much does a game like this? How much do you read into a game like this when you are projecting how the Seahawks are going to fare in the next few weeks? Because obviously it's a very different game. The Seahawks have commonly played down to bad opponents under Pete Carroll. I mean, that's from dating back to 2010. I mean, we're talking, we've all aged considerably. I've had 2 kids since then. It's been a long time, Robbie. So this is nothing that unusual. But at the same time, I suppose you could say they will raise their game for maybe the Ravens on the road, or they'll raise their game for the Niners on Thanksgiving night in Seattle. But you could equally say, well, if this is how they play against a really bad Arizona team who are now 1-6 and look like a 1-6 team, how are they going to be able to play clean football against these absolute juggernauts who are coming up? And I think the Ravens are a juggernaut, because they've spanked Detroit today and they look increasingly good. And then, well, we all know what San Francisco is capable of, and Philadelphia, and some of the others are, a notch behind, but they're still good teams.
Yeah. Well, I expect to play, as good as San Francisco is, I know they're probably the best team in the league right now. I still expect to play them close, just because it's that it's that NFC West. I expected it to be at least semi-competitive, and the guys to get up for that one. I think everyone's going to be hyped up to play those games. I think back to the 2013 season when we played the Houston Texans, and we were just the team. We were dominating, right? And we Houston came into our house and just was laying it to us, and it was like 21-0 at halftime or something, and we had to come from behind to win. Or I can't remember what the score was, but we were down at halftime, and it just felt like, what is happening? And like, just an awful team. And we came back and won that game in overtime. And it's a game that, like, you think we should have come out and dominate. And I think I saw someone said it in here. I don't remember who said it, but like, there are no easy games, which I get. Yeah. but there are teams that you should really handle.
There definitely are easy games, though, are there?
Well, I mean, there's easier teams, right? I guess you could say, like, right. But I just feel like you can always look back to like some of those games where you should, really be thumping a team and you're winning, 23-20 when you should have beat them, 42-7 or something. So, yeah.
It's hard. I don't really know because I don't know what the answer is, Robbie. But I just think I'm not completely convinced. I'm not convinced, and I'm surprised. I'll hold my hands up. I thought the defense could potentially be a liability this year because of the D line. We talked about it, Robbie, before the season started. The D line has not been as much of an issue as I thought it would be, and hats off to Clint Hurt and to Pete Carroll, who have done a better job on the defense than I expected. Well done to them, and they deserve respect for that. I do think it'd be interesting to see how they fare against, Lamar Jackson, Robbie, and the Niners and the Rams again and Cowboys, because they're going to be big tests. And if they go back to giving up 500 yards and not sacking anybody in those games, and I did see a stat the other day, Robbie, that suggested that Seattle's pressure percentages and their ranking are really heavily influenced right now by that Giants game. But, if they can carry this on and do it against the top teams, fair play. And what I also didn't expect is the offense to look just as stuttering as it is. There are great moments. That Jake Bobo catch, fantastic. Jackson Smith and Jibba couldn't have asked for an easier touchdown for his first, NFL touchdown. It's whether that was the busted coverage or just well-designed play, it was there and it was easy. There were times when Ken Walker ran the ball well. But to see how inept they are in the red zone, I was watching college football yesterday, Robbie, and as much as YouTube would allow before they'd shut down the streams, and I'm watching these teams in the red zone, and I'm thinking they're just coming up with like quirky little things to finish the job. Because you only when you're like 1 or 2 yards out, it doesn't take much, Robbie, to just get that yard of space you need to get across the line. And for the Seahawks, they might as well be 50 yards out, let alone 1 yard out. They just cannot finish drives off. And it's not just close in. Sometimes when it's congested on the line, it's tough. It's from that sort of secondary red zone, when you're in the 20-yard line, Robbie, or the 15-yard line, you've got a bit more space to work with. They can't scheme anything open. Geno's hesitant. We saw that with the interception today. It needs to look better than this. And we're enough into the season now where you just think, and I'll come back to Geno again before getting to the Super Chats, Robbie. Right now, how can we say with any confidence that this is a player who's going to be worth $31 to $41 million? I mean, they said they get to 9 wins because they're already at 4. That's going to be a minimum $33.1 million. And then if he hits any of the other escalators, he's hard. I don't think he's going to hit the touchdown ones, Robbie, because, again, the teams he's playing, the defenses he's facing, it's going to be hard to get to 30 touchdowns when we're coming up to, what are they, 4-2, 6 games, so just over a third of the season through. He's only on 7. It's going to be a stretch to get to 30. It's going to be a stretch to get to his yardage as well. And completion percentage, I think he's behind the 8 ball on that. So he may not hit any of the other escalators other than maybe the 9 wins. But is he worth $33.1 million, Robbie, based on what we're seeing?
I mean, I don't think so. Not at all. I mean, honestly, I would rather. I don't know what Drew Lock's making. What, $6 million this year? I'd rather
or
$4 million. I would rather give a Drew Lock $4 million, draft a quarterback, have them compete, and if Drew Lock is the starter, let them be the bridge quarterback. And instead of paying that $30 million, I mean, I think that I wish Curtis could give us a better answer here, but on what the actual salary cap is for next year. But if I remember correctly, it's not like all that great. So, and there's going to have to, and they've already pushed some money ahead. So it's like.
Do you mean Seattle's salary cap situation?
Yeah.
So at the moment they are projected to have $4.5 million for next year.
Yeah.
That's with rollover money. So if you take away the rollover money, Robbie, I think they'd be in the red.
Yeah.
So they don't have money to spend next year. They are going to have to create money. You can't go into an off season with a lot, because people do this all the time, and and sadly some of the journalists do this. They'll go, the Seahawks have $17 million to spend because that's how much overall cap they have, but in effective cap space they have $4.5 million to spend. You can't get anything done with that. And Jordan Brooks, Bobby Wagner, Noah Fant, Parkinson, Lewis, Wagner, others, Drew Lock, others are out of contract. There's quite a lot of players out of contract. Some of them are going to have to be replaced or retained. So not draft to fill every hole. So 4.5 is not enough. You have to find a saving from somewhere. You have to save some money. And the best way to do that is Geno Smith's contract, I'm afraid. It just is. So I don't... Geno Smith is, like I said, not a terrible player, but based on what we're seeing at the minute, I don't think you're getting $33 million worth. I would be happy to pay Drew Lock $4 million instead and give him a chance. Or if Geno's going to take a massive pay cut. And the thing that I really should get to the super chats, Robbie, but the thing you mentioned about the sideline thing, it's not just that though, is it? He wanted to fight everybody for the Giants. Yeah. He has these like he gets hot-headed, doesn't he, in games? And people keep talking about, I've no reason to disbelieve any of the talk that he's really respected in the locker room. I'm sure he is. I'm sure he's well liked because everybody says it. And when it's not true because players will let you know. That talk will get out as it did with Russ. But I don't know, Robbie. I think he does lose. He does tend to lose his cool. And we've had a few games now where he's had full halves that have been awful. The Rams second half. The Bengals second half, this second half, the Giants second half, he just wanted to fight everybody. The Carolina first half, he's had long stretches of games, Robbie, where he's done naff all.
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, I appreciate the fire competitiveness, but I mean, it's kind of the same thing like with DK Metcalf. Like you have to control that and not let it affect your game, right? And I think that's where it seems to become an issue. Just in my opinion.
Yeah, and too many turnovers. Anyway, let's get to the super chats. Graham says, cheers for what you guys do. Loving this D, flying out from the UK for next week's game. Graham, have a great time. I'm very jealous that you and Robbie are going to be there.
I will see you there, Graham.
Fantastic. And I am looking forward to seeing the throwbacks next week. I'd forgotten that was the throwback game. I'm glad that you came dressed in your attire, Robbie, to remind me that it's the throwbacks game next week. Jeffrey says, well, that was another wonderful example of Seattle sports mediocrity. Did just enough to stop the riots against a team clearly not trying to win. Yeah, I mean, if they had lost, this would have been an utter epic meltdown fest, that's for sure. This one from Taker610. Man, what happened with Detroit today? They got their doors blown off. I mean, that was an absolute shellacking, absolute hammering. And it kind of, yeah, I wrote in the comment section on the blog that the Lions seem like a bit of a paper tiger rather than a lion at the minute because, yes, they got the record, but good teams don't get hammered like that in a big game on the road. They don't get destroyed like that. So maybe the Lions not quite as for real as people were suggesting. Mike says, what a shite win. So many stupid mistakes. I can't even enjoy it. Typical Pete Carroll coached slop fest. Going to pray tonight for a new coach and quarterback next year, please. I personally don't think that the coaching was... There was nothing in that game that made me think, oh, Pete Carroll. I pin it on players and execution. Pete Carroll's not got an option to Bobo, and then when the throw's not there, he doesn't hold on to it. Oh, I'll throw it anyway. Interception. Pete Carroll didn't drop a basic snap for another turnover. Pete Carroll didn't nearly throw a pick six in the first half. This is on execution. This is not. Pete Carroll didn't whiff on that touchdown run for the Arizona Cardinals in the first half. So I don't put that on Carroll. I put it on the players for some things. David says, pedestrian win. We are better than this deep down. That's inspired a question that I've got for you, Robbie, in a second. And Noah says, I can't watch Geno throw into triple coverage for another year. The number of turnover-worthy throws he makes is unbelievable. Defense is looking elite. The turnover-worthy plays, it's remarkable how much fortune he's had in Seattle with that. And I'm afraid it just highlights that he is Geno Smith is still Geno Smith officially. He is Geno Smith. So I think we've got through all of the super chats. Keep them coming in if you have a comment or if you want a question. Thank you for everybody who sent them in already. Massively appreciated. And make sure you like the video as well. Robbie, how good are the Seahawks? How good are they? Can we answer that yet?
I don't know if it's too early to answer. I want to see us go through the gauntlet of the tough games first. I think it's still too early to tell. I think we have potential. I don't think we're a Super Bowl winning team.
Okay, let me put it this way then. Does the fact that we can't answer that right now actually answer the question for us, ultimately? Do we know who the good teams are? Like the Chargers have just hammered the Chiefs have just hammered the Chargers. So they're still the Chiefs. And then we see the Chargers today and you go, they're still the Chargers. You kind of we're starting to know who teams are now. We know the Niners are good. We know the Eagles are good. We know who the Cowboys are, don't we? On any given day, the Cowboys could beat somebody if they get on top in a game. You can you can also. I'm sorry. I've just read this comment here, accusing me of always being negative. It's like I can't. Robbie, is this a Seattle thing? Like, just tell me. It's like this idea that people are you. I'm talking to you. Look, there's 400 people watching this right now. Here's my message to you guys. Right? Are you that incapable of having a proper conversation about your football team? Are you that unable to just talk? We talked about the positives at the start. We did like 20 minutes talking about Weatherspoon, Bobo, the defense. Props to PK. As soon as we talk about something that is negative, why is this ultra reaction to it all of the time? Why are you so freaking delicate that you cannot accept anything? How can anybody watch that today and not spend considerable time talking about Geno Smith? It's unbelievable to me, Robbie. And for it to be considered English, that it's an English attitude thing, as that comment said there, to just discuss an important topic with the team. Geno Smith's a vital talking point. As we've just said, $4.5 million cap space next year, and he's on $33 million. And we can't talk about him having another game like this without it being considered negative. Are people that delicate, Robbie, with this football team? Tell me. Tell me.
I wouldn't say just the Seattle. I think people are delicate about their teams, regardless. I mean, I get pretty sensitive about Mariners and when they don't win and other teams as well. So I mean, on one hand, I get it. I don't think it's an English thing. I think that was just I don't know why that was thrown in there. But I'm gonna digress, and I'm gonna circle back to your original question. Can we take?
Mine was a digression, Robbie. You're keeping it on top.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go back to the topic that you brought up earlier. Do we know who they are? And you can tell who the good teams are. I don't know. I mean, I didn't get to see any games, but I'm looking at the scores right now. I see the Patriots beat the Bills. So, for me, I thought the Bills were going to be a really good football team, and right now they're 4-3, and they just lost to the Patriots, who clearly haven't looked like a very, very good team. So I don't know. I think it's too early to tell kind of what kind of team this is yet. I think there's still a lot of important games to be played, and then I also feel like if we can get through some of these, important games and get some wins and see what kind of team this is, I think, we're definitely young, right? We're one of the youngest football teams right now. And, we do have some veteran leadership on the team, but it's how these guys continue to progress, over the course of the season is really what's going to tell what kind of team we're going to be. But I will say this, I'm going to go back also and just say, with JSN and Bobo, I feel really good about our wide receiver core going forward. So I know Lockett's getting up there, and you never know what's up with DK or anything like that. But these young wide receivers that we have, I feel like this is a really good nucleus to have, and we can really build something around these offense. Plus with the running backs too, I'm really excited about what can go forward with these guys.
Yeah, I'm very positive about the receivers, but that in turn, this is where I think of. I think, maybe some people would just cease the conversation there, Robbie, and say the receivers, yeah, really positive. I think what we do here is that is a positive, and it's also a reason for why the offense should be running smoother than this. It should be more explosive than this. It's hard not to watch the Rams. I mean, I saw bits and pieces of the Rams, when the Seahawks games was in commercial break. I was watching Red Zone, and Puka Nacua. I mean, I need to go and see how many yards he had again today, Robbie. They have just sort of, maybe he's just amazing, by the way. Maybe that's just it, and everybody's underestimating him. Maybe it's just the genius of Sean McVay. So Puka Nacua had 8 catches for 154 yards. And the way that they just feature him, Robbie, it's just like, yeah, we're not going to Cooper Cup, but we'll just make Puka Nacua Cooper Cup. You know, it's crazy. And you know, somebody made this point. I can't remember who it was. Was it? I don't know if it was somebody on the radio or Mike. I think it might have been Mike Florio or Chris Sims. And they were saying like, you are paying DK Metcalf a lot of money now. He's no longer that late second round value player. Why are you not featuring him like these teams? You know, why have you not worked out a way to make him a dominant player rather than just a mere contributor? And that's, you know, that's a good question. But then I would sort of think we neither sort of highlighting one of these receivers and making them great, but as a cumulative, I think we could be better. I think Tyler Lockett could be more involved. I think Jackson Smith and Jigba clearly up until now could have been more involved. The tight ends could be more involved. DK Metcalf could be more involved. And I know that they all can't do it at the same time, but this should be a more explosive offense because they've invested in it. They've really paid big money and picks to have an explosive offense. They've invested so much in skilled players, and we expect to see more. And that's when I think the conversation comes back to Geno Smith again, is that he has to play better. He has to be better. And the point I was coming to, Robbie, is if we don't really know where the team is by now, well, maybe that says it all. I think that clearly there's talent on the Seahawks team, and I think they have improved from last year, Robbie, in terms of the roster. But I think right now they're probably capable of winning one playoff game. And it depends who they would play. I think if they had to go to San Francisco, they would lose. But if they had to go to Dallas, they might have a chance of winning that game. If they ended up going to whoever wins NFC South, of course they could win that game. Is that fair? Do you think that's where they are? And if that's where they are, how do they? What do they need? What do they lack to take that next step?
I mean, I think that's a pretty good assessment, you know, of where the team could be as far as the potential for this year. You know, I like you said, I think they're, you know, quarterback is going to be a huge talking point, regardless if it's not next year. It should be a conversation after the season, regardless. But I mean, even if it's not, like, even if their plan is to continue to start Geno, he's not going to last that much longer. And I just don't think he's the guy to get us to the promised land. I mean, there's too many mental mistakes. He just doesn't feel like the guy. So, you know, I want someone who can elevate this team for when, you know, there are days like this that are going to happen. Then they're going to elevate the team to really make us play better. And you know, I want a Mahomes. Who doesn't want a Mahomes or someone like that to, you know, make this team better? And you know, I almost want it to feel automatic. If we get in the red zone, we're scoring. Like that's going to happen. Like that's what I want to see. So I think we're missing that kind of piece of it. You know, obviously today the O-line missing, and, you know, getting them healthy and getting them back is going to be a huge thing as well. We got to get those guys playing together again. But I like the nucleus of the offense. Like, and I even like our O-line when they're healthy. Like the things that we've got on offense seem like they're all the right pieces. It just, there's that, and obviously quarterback's always going to take the biggest brunt of criticism, but for the right reason. He touches the ball every single time. So, you know, you want to trust somebody who's going to get the ball in their hands and is going to score almost every time.
What do you want in a quarterback, Robbie? Because as you were talking there, I was sort of thinking it's hard because, you know, everybody wants Mahomes, but there's only one Patrick Mahomes. You know, even people like Justin Herbert have never. I mean, Herbert's been in the league a long time now. He's been paid. He's on his second contract, Robbie. He is currently leading a team with a losing record, despite having a good roster. And the coach is going to get most of the criticism there. You know, most people will point the finger at Brandon Staley in LA rather than Justin Herbert. But the point I'm making really is that as good as he is, he's not been able to elevate the Chargers. So what do we need the Seahawks to go and get? What is the type of quarterback? Because it's going to be really hard. They ain't going to get a Caleb Williams. who incidentally has not played that great the last couple of weeks, and they've lost both games. But they're not going to get a player like that. They're going to be looking going to draft a quarterback at the QBs that are available from 20 onwards, you would suggest, unless they're going to trade up. I think there are players in that range who could be intriguing. But what do we actually need? Is it just somebody who's amazingly talented, who we can turn into someone who could be really special in the way that sort of Russell Wilson did, a third rounder who ended up becoming special for a long time? People forget that, but he did. Or is it somebody who can just get the basics right? Or I suppose what I'm saying is, do we need somebody who can be more Alex Smith than Geno Smith? Do we need somebody who can just function? Because Alex Smith he didn't have the arm that Geno Smith had. He's not capable of, he wasn't capable of some of the throws that Geno could make, but he could probably be more effective in the red zone. He could, get more third downs and stuff like that. What is it that you think this team needs? I mean, my biggest fear, Robbie, one of my big fears is they're going to go after Kirk Cousins next year. I wonder if they would. If they moved on from Geno.
I would rather them just start Locke. I mean, I don't know.
I agreed. I'm talking about that as a fear.
Okay.
It's a fear.
That's not a fear I have, but you just put it in me. So
maybe not. I think he'd be too expensive. But I don't know. He just seems very.
I mean, honestly, I would rather just have Geno. Too. I don't know. Okay. I think I'm gonna steal something that somebody said. Hold on, I gotta scroll up here. I like what they said about what do I want in a quarterback. They said this is what the bean counter said. Said want to feel like Russ in a prime where you felt like he could make something happen in crunch time. Exactly, that's what I want. I want it like when Russ was in his prime. I feel like I feel like he got the ball with 3 minutes left. You just felt like he could make something happen. You know what I mean?
Like that game against Minnesota. Can you remember the game against Minnesota? And it was a prime time. Was it? I don't know if it was Monday Night Football or Sunday Night Football. And we needed a drive. We needed a touchdown. There were a couple of fourth down conversions. It was like fourth down. He threw it to DK Metcalf, Robbie. What was that? 2020? Might have been the COVID year.
I don't remember that one.
You cannot remember it? Like
No.
Russell just drove. It was we were like 5-0 at the time, and so it will have been 2020. I'm pretty sure it was the COVID year. Sort of that, it's clutch time. You need a drive. You get your drive.
And you just feel like that's going to happen. That's what I want. I mean, I just want to trust my quarterback, and for some reason I don't. And I can't actually pinpoint it. I know people are going to be like, I'm just hating on Geno. I'm not. He throws really good, pretty balls. There's things that he does well, but there's something about it that I just. I don't know.
I think it's a trust factor.
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know why. And people are saying I just want to comment on this. I've seen a couple people say I think Locke is better. I'm not saying Locke. I don't know what the hell we have in Locke. I'm not saying he's better at all by any means. I just would rather take my chances at starting Locke than go sign a Kirk Cousins just to see what we could bring in there. That was.
I don't think Locke. I think you probably agree, Robbie. I don't think Locke. I don't think he probably wouldn't be better.
He probably would.
I mean,
no.
If he was, I think he'd be playing. I think if he was obviously better, he'd be in there. I don't think he will be better. I think he's the classic backup quarterback, and that when the other guy's not playing that great, he's everybody's favorite player, and he just so happens to have. He's not a Brian Hoyer type backup quarterback, is he? He's a younger, big-armed, athletic quarterback, and that's exciting to an extent. So people are kind of intrigued by it. But I certainly don't think Geno playing like that today is going to get him benched. He's going to have to get a lot worse than this for that to happen. But I think sort of moving forward, you can't. There's just too many mistakes, and that's been Geno. It's been Geno.
Yeah, and I'm not even saying I want him to be benched. I just want him to play better than he is. You know what I mean? Like and I think that's what I think. A lot of people think we're just hate Geno. I just want to make sure we're clarifying that a lot. That when we have these conversations, we're like, you have to admit it, like, yeah, we said at the beginning, we're great to have that as a win, but it's a pretty uninspiring win. And when you have 3 turnovers and, 2 of them come at the hands of your quarterback, it seems, there's things that you want to talk about. And I think for him, it's just been like 2 weeks in a row where it hasn't been all, I mean, let's be honest, it's been longer than 2 weeks in a row, but there have been things that have been frustrating. But again, he did make some pretty passes today. There's been some.
He always does.
Yeah, he always has some incredible balls. It just, I don't know. I can't quite pinpoint what it is, but there's just something that you're right. I just don't think it's a trust thing. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but that's always the way, isn't it? If you're not constantly gushing with praise, then you hate the guy. Definitely not the case. I think saying he's a bridge is I don't know why that's offensive. I think it's a very valid opinion to have, and I stand by that. I think he has to be the guy that gets you into the next guy. And when Seattle were in that position last time, they drafted Russell Wilson, and the rest is history.
Mm-hmm.
They need to do that again. They need to do that again now. David Ashton says, Robbie is on it. Legend. There you go, Robbie.
Appreciate that.
Legend. That's quite
It's
a very complimentary super chat.
I'm going to sleep well from that one. Thank you there, David. I appreciate that.
Save the Geese, who was he sort of inspired my throat clearing earlier, Robbie, when we were talking about something else. He says, Rob, I still love your coverage of the Hawks. No hard feelings. It's been a long work week. I'm just happy Seattle won. They definitely need a QB. Yeah, definitely no hard feelings. And I get it. It is the one thing that sets me off is when people just accuse, we try and have balanced discussion. Whenever Robbie and I get together, it's what we think first and foremost. We never give an opinion because we have an agenda. Because the only agenda I've got is for the Seahawks to be great, and I guess Robbie, you would echo that. And and we talk about things good and bad, and sometimes the things that are bad warrant more of a fleshing out than There's not much further to go than just to say Devin Witherspoon's amazing. There's not much else to say.
That guy's fantastic, man. That hit today got me out of my seat. I was worried he was gonna get flagged. I was like, oh no, don't! If they would have thrown a flag, I would have been so pissed.
I know you need a bit of that in the game. You need some of that in the game. You need a bit of violence in the game, and that is part of the problem. There's not really much else to say other than he's fantastic and he looks great and it looks like a really good pick.
I do like the fact that they send him on blitzes like that, because when they showed the replay of that and how he disguised that was pretty sweet. I mean, I really enjoyed that they send him, like, using him every way possible. I mean, that's what you want to see out of some of your star players, using them in any way you can and get him involved in the game.
Completely, and they're doing a good job of that. And like I say, it's a shame that the sack didn't count, because I thought that was a bit ticky-tacky. I mean, look, the roughing the passer, you see that given most weeks, but every week in the NFL. So I can get that, but the sack, I thought the refs could have just let that go. But great player. But then when you get to a topic like Geno, it warrants a longer debate. It needs more of a discussion to explain your opinions. Mark D says, mark my words, Russell Wilson will return to Seattle at a deep discount to revive his career. The thing is, Robbie, is it would be a very Pete Carroll thing. I just don't. This just seems beyond. I don't see Wilson going back in the way that Wagner has, for example, or maybe one or two others would have got. And we see Richard Sherman hangs around the place all the time. Like, Richard Sherman's got nothing to do, so he goes and hangs around at the Seahawks facility. I just don't see Wilson and Carroll coming together, and also Wilson's not playing well enough, is he, Robbie, for that to be a possibility? Sadly, I do mean this sadly, because I just think that after this year, Russ, that might be it for Russ, Robbie. Who gives him a chance after this?
I mean, I don't really know his stats, to be honest. I'm not paying attention as much to the Broncos as I did last year. But from my understanding, I thought he wasn't playing terrible, but he's not playing super great. I mean, looking at his stats now, he's got 12 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, averaging about 217. I mean, yeah, it's definitely not worth what his contract is. That's for sure. I think someone would give him a chance. I mean, just for namesake alone, someone else is going to give him a chance. But I definitely don't think he's going to be in Denver next year. I don't think he'll be in Seattle either, though. Personally,
let's just do a quick exercise, Robbie. So I want to sort of place, because somebody sent me a tweet earlier and said that Geno's legit a top 10, and we've kind of talked a bit about it. I want to know where you would place him. So I'm just going to run through a list of quarterbacks, and you just say whether you think he's better than Geno or worse. And we can bypass the ones that are obvious. He's better than. So, do you think he's better than Tua?
No.
Okay, so that's one quarterback. Josh Allen?
No.
That's 2. Mahomes, obviously not. 3. Justin Herbert?
I'd say yes right now.
You think he's better than Justin Herbert?
Right now, I'd say he's better.
Lamar Jackson?
No.
Joe Burrow?
No.
Trevor Lawrence?
No.
Okay, so that's 6, and that's the AFC. Would you put him? I mean, is it too soon to sort of ask the question about CJ Stroud?
Yeah, it's probably too early.
Okay, we'll leave that. Jalen Hurts?
I'm gonna say no.
Dak Prescott?
No.
By the way, does no mean he's not better than him? Or
He's not. He's not. Like,
Okay,
he's not better than Dak. Sorry.
Brock Purdy?
No.
Matt Stafford?
This is actually really hard. Is he better than Matt Stafford? I'd say no.
Jared Goff?
Yes.
Kirk Cousins?
Yes.
Justin Fields?
Yeah. Yeah.
Derek Carr?
Yes.
So I don't think there's anybody else who could potentially be ranked ahead of him. I don't think I've missed anybody out. So you had him at 11, ranked 11th, Robbie. So is that kind of what you expected?
Yeah, I was actually expecting around 15. I thought just middle of the tier, not.
I'm somewhat with you. I don't know if there's any that I would necessarily disagree. Maybe Jared Goff. I think that's. I think Geno is. Here's the thing. I think I'd probably agree with you, but then I would put Geno Smith probably in a level group with Goff, Cousins. That's probably it, to be honest. They're probably like a 3 that are together, because I think Derek Carr's finished. Yeah. And there's a potential, I think, that CJ Stroud by this time next year will be above all of those guys. So I think Herbert's better than Geno Smith. That's where I disagree with you. So I would put Herbert ahead. So I would probably have him 12. But I think 12, 13, 14 might be Goff, might be Geno, Goff, Cousins, and I think those 3 are, you could split hairs on where they're going to be. So there we go. So that's the interesting thing for it, Robbie, because if you're sort of middle of the pack, it's not the worst place to be in, but you always feel like you've got to be. And my concern at the start of the year was definitely that if we don't have a definitive answer either way on Geno, it becomes hard to know what to do, and the Seahawks will end up with a dilemma. And I fear that's becoming a reality here, that he's not playing terribly enough where it's obvious they need to move on, but he's not playing well enough to mean it's obvious he stays, and that's becoming a bit of an issue for me. Somebody's brought up the Rugby World Cup in the comments, which I do not appreciate, because I was quite melancholic about that last night. England lost, Robbie, to South Africa in the most frustrating way imaginable. But then when I'd watched that and come home and just been melancholic and miserable for an hour, I put on some college football, Robbie. And did you catch any of it yesterday?
I mean, I caught just highlights. I've been super busy this weekend, so for me, I didn't get to watch a lot of football.
It was not good, Robbie.
I did see the hit that Ewers took or whatever. That looked pretty hard hit. He should have definitely slid there, but
Yes, he's injured again now, and
well,
it's a shoulder again.
He took a hell of a hit. I'm not surprised.
But in the same sense, like Caleb Williams lost again. I mean, look, he's still very creative. He's still going to be the number 1 overall pick, but he's lost 2 in a row now. Drake May and North Carolina lost to Virginia, and May was fine. He wasn't massively at fault, I would say. The defense for North Carolina was a joke. But at the same time, Drake May couldn't, will them over the line. Michael Penix Jr. was really bad.
Hey, did I see Riley Leonard play yesterday?
Yes.
On a high ankle sprain?
He had no business playing either. I've seen highlights of the game, Robbie. He could barely move. He couldn't step into his throws. It was painful to watch. The coach at Duke's done an amazing job. You have to doff your cap to him. But there's absolutely no way he should be letting his star player play in that game. He needs to protect his player and say, no, you have a high ankle sprain. You are not playing in that game. So
I'm shocked he played.
Fair play. He didn't finish the game though, Robbie, because he couldn't play. So he had no business being on the field, and that was poor from Duke.
I thought I saw that, but I was like, "There's no way he played yesterday. There's no way." I didn't. Yeah, surprised.
Michael Penix Jr. The Washington game was interesting because Arizona really played very well, but the concerning thing, Robbie, was he faced pressure, consistent pressure. Like he faced some pressure against Oregon, but this was consistent pressure that he didn't deal well with. It felt like that was the best example of how he deals with pressure. And I'm telling people now, okay, and I'm sorry for any Washington fans who are watching this, but NFL teams are going to watch that game and focus on that game more than any of the games pre-Oregon, because that was the most NFL style environment, and he just couldn't function, Robbie. It was really concerning, and it made me seriously question where I need to put him on a board, the horizontal board, and I have to say that is going to be harder than I probably thought it was after the Oregon game. He clearly has talent, but there are issues there that are going to be hard to rectify when he gets in the league playing in this system. Quinn Ewers, Robbie, played quite well until the smashing hit that he took, but that was a bit of a back and forth game against Houston. And Texas defense was crap. I thought Will Howard played very well for Kansas State, but for some reason they're like swapping in their quarterbacks. They have another guy who played half the snaps, Robbie. It was like taking it a series at a time, which makes no sense because Will Howard's really good. Tyler Van Dyke didn't play. I don't know if you saw that.
Why didn't he play?
An injury, apparently. Not nothing serious, but he sat out this game with the hope of playing next week. Jordan Travis had a horrendous pick 6 for Florida State against Duke, but otherwise did what he does. So yeah, it was and look, Cam Ward, Washington State, is getting no help whatsoever, but he's still battling on. Fair play to him for that. There's definitely something there, but whether he can be an NFL starter or not, I think remains to be seen. I've definitely taken a step the whole weekend, Robbie, and I don't want to overreact to one weekend, but it made me take a little bit of a step back. People are saying JJ McCarthy in the comment section, by the way. JJ McCarthy isn't going to declare. JJ McCarthy will come back next year. He's not physically in position to excel at the NFL. He needs to get stronger. He is not physically developed enough to be a success in the NFL. He knows that. I'm convinced, unless Robbie, he gets a word that they're going to throw the book at Michigan for this cheating scandal, which has emerged. He will probably go back to school, I would have thought, and in a year's time he would come back. So I'm not really considering him, or Shadir Sanders, who is definitely going to go back to Colorado. So my thought, Robbie, was, and then when I'm watching the NFL today, I'm thinking, oh my God, there's about 10 to 12 teams who need a quarterback. Of course, all these guys are going to get overdrafted. So I don't really know what I'm trying to say, Robbie, other than it was an underwhelming weekend. I think all these guys are still going to go early, but I still don't think this hype that this is a much better draft, the quarterback draft than last year is warranted. I just think it's a deeper draft than last year. But I'll tell you what, there is one name I haven't mentioned, Robbie, and it's on purpose. Spencer Rattler. Spencer Rattler, Robbie, is the guy who consistently catches my eye. He is the guy for me at the moment who is intriguing me the most. He played yesterday, Missouri, who are a good football team, Missouri. And I like their quarterback as well. I don't think he'll declare, but I like him. Brady Cook, I think he's called. I don't know if you've seen South Carolina, Robbie, much, but their O-line makes Kentucky's O-line look like the Seahawks O-line from 2005.
So bad.
It is impossibly bad. Rattler was, like someone's put in the comments, didn't Rattler only score 12? Watch the game. He was getting hit pretty much every play. Every drop back. Pressure. And despite all of this, Robbie, he's still making plays. He's scrambling around. He's breaking off runs. His arm talent is fantastic. He's not losing his shit on the sideline when he gets sacked for the 800th time in a game. He is the only reason that South Carolina are even worth watching, because the rest of the team is a mess. They've got nothing on defense. The O-line's shocking. They've got basically Xavier Legette, who's the receiver, and Spencer Rattler, and that's pretty much it. Robbie, he is a poor man's Mahomes. He looks like Mahomes. He plays like Mahomes. He's got arm talent for days. He can scramble around, and it's very difficult to get down. He is matured. You know, people are, like the guy in the comments is calling him Netflix Rattler because of that stupid documentary he did when he was in high school, when he came across like an absolute knob. And you know, he went to Oklahoma and was still a bit of a knob, and he's had to learn the hard way. But now he has learned, Robbie. He has learned. And no one's talking about him. No one talks about Spencer Rattler. I'm here to tell you that Spencer Rattler is now worth the hype he was getting 3 years ago, Robbie. He is good.
I'll have to go back and watch the game from yesterday. Like I said, I didn't get a chance to watch much college football. But you're again, I'm just gonna say what I said last week. If you would have told me you had been saying that last year, I would just not believed it at all. I will say you were talking about like 10 to 12 teams needing a quarterback, and we can all root for the Bears and Tyson Bagent, because he played pretty well today, and I was rooting for him just because he's a CrossFit guy. So it's pretty big.
There you go.
Pretty big on that.
He's one of your.
He's one of my kind. He's in my cult. So.
To put a bow on the whole Rattler thing, Robbie, I do think the Seahawks will like Spencer Rattler because John liked Mahomes, and I think he will like Rattler. But there's just this, and the injury is a consideration, obviously, and the situation at Texas is a consideration. But scouts are going to love Quinn Ewers, whether GM, some GMs, and whether some coaches will love him, I don't know. But there's going to be a lot of people there, Robbie, who like Quinn Ewers, and I genuinely think John Schneider is going to be one of those. John Schneider is going to love the flick of the wrist, and it shoots. He just is. And look, Ewers is 195 pounds, and he isn't going to be able to play at 195 pounds, Robbie. He's had shoulder injuries back-to-back years. He is erratic at times, but he's playing for a coach in Sarkisian that has had some NFL history and that is very well respected within the league. He's got the arm, the very easy flick of the wrist arm strength, Robbie. I think that the scouts and some GMs who are like pure quarterback scouts are going to look at him and go, we can turn him into something special. And I think that John Schneider has got his eye on this guy. I think he will have, if he declares. Tony Pauline reported it was 50-50 on whether he would declare. I think they will they will take a long look at him, rightly or wrongly, and that's my thought, Robbie. I think they're the two that, and I really like Riley Leonard as well. I don't know what he's going to do, and he could be an option. But I think if someone said to me, right, Rob, come on, it's October, you need to make a decision. Who are most likely to be on the Seattle's radar at quarterback? They're the two I'm chucking you away: Quinn Ewers and Spencer Rattler. What say you? What do you think about that?
I mean, I'm all for it, man. I'm all for it. I'm all for some fresh blood. So get it in here and see what happens. May not work out, but I'm okay with that. I would rather them try than not get somebody who just let people pass. Here's my other fear, though. I worry we're not going to be in a position like we'll win just enough games to be out of reach of the quarterbacks and not be able to get one. Just enough.
Maybe. I mean, look, there's just so little chatter about Rattler. I kind of think, Robbie, you might just be sat there in round 2 at this rate. Like there's just nothing. And the thing about Ewers, again, the injury, teams might just think, and because they're, what if you are a GM or if you are a fan who's thinking, okay, I'm after Ewers or Rattler, whatever. You need to root for Michael Penix to get back to his best over the next few weeks. You need to root for Riley Leonard to get healthy and start playing like Riley Leonard can again. And you need to hope that somebody else can emerge and shoot up the board as well, so that they can push these guys further down. And I think there's a chance of it, but they're the quarterbacks that I think. And do you know what, Robbie? I will not be surprised at all if Seahawks move up, because the more and more I study about this class, Robbie, it's not an exciting draft. It's not an exciting draft class. I'm looking at my board now. There are 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there are 3 players that you could say I'm happy taking them in the top 10. Everybody else is, well, they're the next best available, so I'll take them. And then when you go down to the next tier, you've got some players, and none of them are sort of, wow, he excites me. He really excites me. You've just got a whole bunch of players that you'd be happy taking in round 2. They're going to end up going in round 1. I'm looking at this class, Robbie, and I think there's almost, if you weren't going to go for a quarterback, you maybe just take the best defensive lineman that's available and just add another one of those. There are defensive tackles. Look, Jason Newton played well again for Illinois. I think he's more of a 3-4 defensive end rather than a defensive tackle, but he played very well again. He got ejected from his game, but he got ejected sacking a quarterback and just his helmet was too high. I really like McKinley Jackson, but there's not much excitement there, Robbie, and I'm thinking maybe they will just move up because to make sure they get whatever quarterback is the future. That's my thought right now. It's not a very exciting draft class, I have to say. Thank goodness we haven't got 2 first-round picks this year, Robbie.
Yeah, well, I'll trust your board when it comes out. I watch a lot of college football, but I still rely heavily on your board, so I could do that.
Well, just to finish, Robbie, there have been a few players from the old board that are doing all right. Josh Downs is playing very, very well. He was like my top receiver for a long time last year. He's fitting in very well with the Colts. CJ Stroud was QB1. I know people like to go, where Will Levis? Every time we mention quarterbacks, but CJ Stroud was QB1 and Bryce Young was QB4 on the board. So, there's been a few successes there. And look, and the Seahawks have had a good draft. Again, we can see that the players are playing very well. Have you got any final thoughts, Robbie? Before we dip out here, anything else that you want to say about? I'll just say that I thought that Noah Fant catch was really good. It's a shame that he only had 1 catch on 1 target, Robbie. Why can't they just get him involved?
I don't know. That was crazy. There was also like 4 guys around him. That was a. I don't know if that's necessarily where the ball should have went, but I mean, it was a great catch. Final thoughts. I'll be at the game next week, so there's probably a good chance I'm not going to make the podcast. Just throw that out there.
Is that because you are going to be 3 sheets to the wind, Robbie, or is that because you're just going to not be rushing back afterwards?
Well, I mean,
or both.
I haven't been to a game in 2 years, so I'm probably going to lose my voice. So I imagine that it's not going to be a situation where I'm going to want to be on the podcast anyways and talking. But no, I'm definitely going to have a few alcoholic beverages while I'm there. I've got some buddies I'm meeting, so it's gonna be fun to be at the game and be at the throwback, and I plan on buying some new Seahawks swag. So yeah.
Well, don't buy it all, Robbie, because there needs to be some left for when I get there.
Yeah, don't worry.
November.
Don't worry.
By the way, are the stores open around Thanksgiving or?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's like
I don't know because we don't celebrate Thanksgiving over here.
Yeah, I mean that's when all the big Black Friday sales. So
oh really?
They'll be packed.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to that, and it's going to be close, like a month away now.
Yeah,
it's a month. It's getting up. Well, look, have a great time next week, Robbie, and enjoy the throwback stuff. And you are suitably attired already. So
I'm ready. I am ready.
So I have a great time. I have a great time there. And I hope the Seahawks going to win for you and for everybody else who's going. Okay, so make sure you like the video. Thank you for all the super chats. Make sure you like the video. Leave a comment in the comment section. That definitely helps. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe already. SeahawksDraftBlog.com for more analysis. Until next time, bye for now. See you later.